YouTube channel. If you're trying to see nerdy content of any kind, go ahead and follow or subscribe. It helps me out, gets you the content that you're trying to see anyway. And this video is a request from one of my viewers. So if you end up wanting to request a video for Dungeons and Dragons, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, literally anything nerdy, comic books, whatever you'd like, feel more than welcome to. As I said earlier, this video was requested from me from a viewer of mine, AdeptMage2293. Thank you so much for the request. I know you've been waiting for this video. I've been trying to get it out, and here it is. Can't wait for you guys to see it. This is a $50 budget Tyvar Kell Oathbreaker deck. Now, I don't usually play Oathbreaker, so feel free to correct any of the mistakes I may have made in the comment section. But at any rate, let's get into it. Tyvar Kell was really fun to build as an Oathbreaker. I've been meaning to build tribal elves for a while anyway, and so getting the opportunity to do so was really nice. Bounty of Skemfar is what I decided should be the signature spell. Bounty of Skemfar and one other card in this deck are like 100% interchangeable. I just went with this one because I thought it would be cheaper in the end. I'll go over that other card later. At any rate, Tyvar Kell himself has elves you have tapped to add 1 black mana. I actually built this as a mono green deck, but it still comes in handy to have a general every once in a while. His +1 ability puts a +1/+1 counter on an elf. It'll untap it, and then it'll have Death Touch until the end of turn. That comes in handy every once in a while, especially when you tap it to have 1 black mana. And then his 0 ability will give you a 1/1 green elf warrior token. His ultimate is really, really good. Whenever you cast an elf spell, it gains haste until the end of turn and you draw 2 cards. So he does a lot of this stuff by himself. That being said, let's get into the cards that help him out. Starting with Draw Power. Everyone's favorite section of the deck is Draw Power. Card advantage wins you games. Bottom line, right? Josh Lee Kwai believes it. I believe it. Lots of Magic players believe it because it's true. If you have the cards to beat your opponents, then you will win, right? So Draw Power starts with Greater Good, Threats Undetected, and Harmonize. It's a green deck, guys. Like, you already know I'm putting Threats Undetected in it. It's one of my favorite cards. It probably is my favorite card if I'm being honest. Super good. You literally pick what elves you want in your hand at the time, depending on the situation that you're in, and now they're in your hand. Look at that. Greater Good. A lot of people might worry that you would only like draw a card and then discard 3. That's not the case. This deck has a lot of things that beef up your elves, so don't stress that. No matter what, you will go +1 with with Greater Good. And then Harmonize. When I found out that I was going to be under a budget, I immediately thought to myself of Harmonize, right? Pay 4, draw 3 cards. That's a little over. It's like 1 1/3 mana per card, right? Super good, super cheap card. Definitely worth it. Next up, we've got Solemn Simulacrum, Commune with Nature, and Shamanic Revelation, right? Solemn Simulacrum, not only because he gets you a land, but also because he draws you a card. Once he's in the field, just swing until somebody kills him. Somebody will eventually kill him, and then you'll be able to draw your card. Commune with Nature, I picked up. A 3-cent card will look at the top 5 and either get you a land or a creature. When you put 2 and 2 together, that's basically all you play in this deck. So no matter what, you're getting something good, right? And then Shamanic Revelation, this deck is designed to go super wide. So 5 mana will draw you 10 cards, 12 cards. It's going to be a lot of cards that you're drawing. It's really good. Trust me on this one. You want that one. And last but not least, we've got Commune with Spirits. This card can fit in this section or the next section, really. With this one, you're basically just fishing for a land and kind of trying to get your deck to shuffle. There are some enchantments you might end up playing, but nothing like super spicy, right? With that being said, let's go to our next section. Ramp it up. In any deck with green, you can always figure that there's going to be lots of ramp spells. In a mono green deck, I felt like it was more important, so this section might be a little bit bigger than a lot of you would like. The reason for that is because when you have big beefy creatures or when you want to cast lots of elves at the same time, it's always useful to have lots of lands, right? So not only did a couple of the cards from the last section fit this build, but also a lot of the cards in this section are just going to be specific to getting you lands because it's what you're going to need. And some of them are elves anyway, so I mean it fits the build pretty well. At any rate, let's start with Llanowar Elves, Priest of Titania, and Elvish Mystic. 2 of these are very, very easily staple cards in any green deck, right? And one of these puts in so much work in this deck that it's actually kind of bonkers. Priest of Titania is actually one of the only cards of the entire build that I own. Obviously, I own all the lands, right? But like, I don't own a whole lot of the cards in this deck, so being able to like see that I had one of them was pretty nice. It gives me a start if I end up wanting to build Tyvar Kell as an Oathbreaker deck. Um, but the other two are pretty self-explanatory, right? Next up, we've got Nightshade Dryad, Elvish Archdruid, and Burnished Heart. Burnished Heart is one of my favorite ram spells of all time. It's cheap, it's effective. Sure, 6 mana only gets you 2 basic lands, but in the meantime, you have a creature, right? Super good. I love that card. Nobody can tell me anything against it, right? But also, I play lots of graveyard decks and I recur it all the time, so take it with a grain of salt. Nightshade Dryad is one of my favorite mana dorks. The reason for that is because it's got Death Touch, right? You guys already know I'm a big fan of Tower Winder. The reason I love Tower Winder is because it's got Death Touch, it's got Reach, and it gets you a mana. That's pretty much the same idea here. And Elvish Archdruid, this is the one of the pumping effects that I told you about. Other elves get +1/+1, and you tap to add a mana for each elf you control. You're going to have a lot of elves, you're going to add a lot of mana. It's a no-brainer for this deck. Next up, we're looking at Farhaven Elf, Wood Elves, and Many Partings. I like Many Partings because for 1 mana, you get yourself a basic land. That's super good in early game, and you get a food token. Not only that, but look at this art. Definitely a good art to have on a card. Farhaven Elf. When Farhaven Elf enters the battlefield, you may search for a basic land card, put it into your battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. This is just a ram spell, right? That's all it is. But it's an elf also. And then Wood Elves, I think, does basically the same thing. Just gets you a forest, you put it on your library. The only forests that you're going to have are going to be basic. So it does the same thing for the same cost. And it's an elf. So again, just a couple good ramp spells. That being said, you're starting to see a theme here. The next section is going to be more elves, beefy elves. This section is all about making your elves bigger, making your elves tougher, giving them keywords, and making your elves do the work that you need to get done. Kicking it off, we've got Liz Alana Huntmaster, Imperious Perfect, and Elfsworn Giant. These 3 are designed to get you more elves, right? Liz Alana Huntmaster, whenever you cast an elf, you may create a 1/1 elf warrior token. So good. That's 2 elves every single time you get an elf on the field, right? Imperious Perfect makes your elves a little bit bigger, and then you can tap green and tap it and get yourself an elf warrior creature token. Super good. Elfsworn Giant is a landfall, right? Back to ramping, anytime you put a land onto the field, Elfsworn Giant is going to get you an elf warrior token. We just want as many elf warrior tokens as we can get. Next up, we've got Daiwyn Guiltleaf Dane, Elvish Warmaster, and Elven Ambush. Elven Ambush is the card that I was telling you guys is interchangeable with the signature spell. Create a 1/1 elf warrior token for each elf you control. Now, casting that, I would want to cast it as often as possible, right? So if I had, say, 10 mana, I would definitely cast it twice that turn, right? But if you think about it, because your signature spell goes up the same way that commander damage goes up, it'll eventually be so expensive that it won't be worth it, right? However, this is a really, really good card, right? Assuming that you have 10 elves on the field, you now have 20. That is insane. For 4 mana, crazy. Busted, right? Elvish Warmaster, whenever 1 or more elves enter the battlefield, you create a 1/1 elf creature token. Now, this is good because you can just as soon as an elf comes in, you get another one, right? Also, his activated ability is pretty good. 5 and 2 green will give your elves +2/+2 and Death Touch until the end of turn. This is where we're talking about pumping them up, getting them bigger, and then making them deadlier, right? And then Dwynen. Oh my goodness, I pronounced it wrong the first time. It's Dwynen. Dude, this card is so hard to read. I can't pronounce any of it. Anyway, other elves you control get +1/+1. It has reach, so it can block creatures with flying. And then whenever it attacks, I gain a life for each elf attacking, right? That is a lot of life that you're going to gain. That's a lot of, it's a +1/+1 for all the elves. In general, just a good card. Following it up is Drove Elves, Elf Sharpshooter, and Jagged Scar Archers. These all have little stars where the stars are equal to the number of elves that you control. Super good, dude. These elves are going to be so big because remember that last spell, how it could potentially get you 10 and then you would have 20? You would literally double the power of any of these with that spell. Then for 2 of them, you double the power and the toughness. That being said, Elf Sharpshooter and Jagged Scar Archers are both going to deal damage to a flyer, one when it enters and another one whenever you tap it. And having a big hexproof elf is never a bad thing, right? Especially not in this deck. We'll keep chugging along with Get 'em out of here. This is all about getting rid of your opponent's stuff and making sure that your stuff lives. Kicking this section off, we've got Reclamation Sage, Sereth the Viper Fang, and Rabid Bite. Rabid Bite is mostly for when you have Sereth the Viper's Fang on the field or Elvish Warmaster, right? Both of those things give your creatures Death Touch, and that's super important. That's the reason behind all the fight spells that you're about to see. Sereth the Viper's Fang will give your tapped creatures Death Touch. The reason that that's good is because of all the fight spells, right? Once you tap out all your elves and you've already attacked, you can use the Rabid Bite to get rid of, or the fight spells in general, I guess, to get rid of all your opponent's stuff, right? And Reclamation Sage is itself an elf, but it will destroy an enchantment or artifact, and it's pretty good to get rid of pesky, like, enchantments in Oathbreaker. Next up, we've got some more fight spells. Savage Punch, Ram Through, and Bridgeworks Battle. Savage Punch is probably my favorite art on a card, right? It's either this or Outmuscle. I love the cards where the guy is just punching the bear. It's so good, right? But, I mean, not for nothing. The creature that you're going to fight gets a +2/+2 if it has 4 power or greater, or if you control a creature with 4 power or greater. Ram Through is really good. Basically, if it has trample, if the creature already has trample, then the excess damage goes through the player anyway. And then Bridgeworks Battle is pretty good. Give a creature +2/+2, and then it fights up to another creature. That's super important. And then on the other side of it, it's got that land. So really good in multiple decks that I have, and I chose Bridgeworks Battle for this one for a reason. We've got one more removal piece and 2 more protection pieces. These are the only protection pieces that I have. Overprotect, Horrific Assault, and Horrid Vigor are in this section. Horrid Vigor I really like because of the Death Touch and Indestructible, right? If you give Indestructible to a token, it'll get rid of your opponent's 10/10 for fun, right? Really fun. Overprotect I like. I think this card is like super under talked about. I haven't seen anybody talk about this card and how good it is. So listen to all of this, right? Gains Trample, gains Hexproof, gains Indestructible, and gets +3/+3. That's 3 keywords and +3/+3 for 2 mana at instant speed. Super, super good. Horrific Assault is nice because it's 1 mana, so it's a very cheap card, and I think it's even cheap in real life, like it costs 3 cents. But also, if you end up deciding to play any Eldrazi's in the deck, you end up gaining 3 life from it. Really good, really fun. That leads us to the last section, which is just lands. I think in total there's 4 lands, if you include the MDFC, for that aren't forest, right? There's not a whole lot in this section to talk about, but I'll go ahead and explain these ones. Rogue's Passage, Fertile Thicket, Path of Ancestry. The reason I went with Fertile Thicket is because it gets you another land, right? Super good. Always good to have a ramp land. Path of Ancestry, everything is going to be elves. So everything is going to scry a card. You will decide what you will be drawing if you have this, right? Rogue's Passage, eventually your big beefy guys with the little stars, those guys are going to be so huge that Rogue's Passage is just going to kill, right? So always good to have a Rogue's Passage. That'll wrap us up. We'll end up with just forests after this, 17 of them to be exact. Obviously you're going to need forest. There's not a reason to explain it. But that's it for the deck, honestly. Next up, let's talk about the budget. If you were to buy the cards that I just told you about on TCG Player, at the time of the recording of this video, according to Moxfield, you would spend a whopping $23.50. What that means is that you could go in and upgrade this Oathbreaker deck by another $25. Now, whether or not that hits the budget mark, I'll let you guys decide. Go ahead and tell me in the comment section. But I think coming in under budget would always be better than being even a little bit over budget, because that leaves the rest up to you guys in your playstyle, right? Let me know how I did. I had a lot of fun building this deck. I had a lot of fun getting into it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Every single time I get a view or a comment or a suggestion or anything, I can't tell you how happy it makes me, right? So good. Thank you so much. Let me know what decks to build. Let me know what formats you want me to build. Let me know if there's anything else nerdy that you want me to talk about. Do you guys want to hear me rant on about my 46 comic books that I have? What about Gundams? Maybe best animes, who I think would win in a fight. You guys let me know. This whole channel is designed to get nerdy people and bring them together. So anything nerdy that you want to talk to me about, or anything not nerdy that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.